Welcome to ScottyTheNJMedium.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe and check back every week for new podcasts and videos right here at ScottyTheNJMedium.com. Hey everybody, it's Scott from ScottyTheNJMedium.com. I hope everybody had a very happy and safe holiday. It's a couple days after Christmas, so I hope everybody got what they wanted. I know I did. I had a great time. I enjoyed time with my family, and it was real nice. The last time that I talked to you guys was, I think, maybe about a week ago. I talked to you a little bit about my health issues and my what is it called? Ferritin being high in my blood. I have a doctor appointment for January 9th, which I'm going to go check out with them and see what they say about it. And basically, if you need to know what that is, it just means that I have a lot of iron in my blood. So the regular operating number for a healthy person is like 80 to 200. Mine is closer to 700 just a couple weeks ago when I had my physical exam done. So that started me down a road of like, what am I doing to stay healthy? And is doing mediumship and doing psychic work affecting my body physically? So I started getting into learning about grounding or earthing. I've been watching a lot of videos and trying to understand the concept behind the whole thing. And I had mentioned that, when we do grounding as psychics and mediums and stuff, we ground ourselves mentally and spiritually. But what does that do for us physically? Well, the answer, I think, is not much. Not much physically to protect ourselves. So, what do we have to do to physically protect ourselves? Well, we have to actually connect ourselves to the earth. So I guess the way that I understand it is that we pick up a lot of positive electromagnetic field EMF, which we know is definitely harmful for human beings, right? So EMF, and it's positive, and it acts like free radicals in our body. It's very inflammatory. It causes headaches, nausea, achy bones, and all kinds of things like this, right? So when you ground or earth, quite simply, that's the best way to do it is to stand outside and put your feet in the ground. And basically what happens is the earth gives off a negative version of EMF, and it neutralizes basically the EMF in the air. So it kind of like negates all the negative things that are happening. So if you spend a couple hours outside barefoot, it's a great service to your body, because that gives your body a chance to cancel out all the negative EMF that comes from the computers, the phones, the radio waves in the air, and all the other stuff. Now, I'm not an expert by any means. If you have a little time, go ahead while you're on YouTube and look up earthing or grounding, and there's plenty of really great videos and plenty of people out there who talk about it. I am just on my own little journey right now to see how much it's going to affect me going forward. I do have a lot of symptoms of things that I think that these people talk about, from the achy joints and the muscle fatigue, tiredness, headaches, and a lot of inflammatory issues. And I think that could all be attributed also to having high deposits of iron in my blood. But my question also is the high iron in my blood acting as a conductor for me doing mediumship and my psychic work? I'm not sure. So basically what I have to do is really keep a good log of how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. And very soon you're going to get a video of me basically standing outside, grounding myself. And also, I've been looking up videos and tutorials basically on how to ground myself while inside. There's plenty of videos. You can check those out. Just look it up. So I'm going to be doing that as well, and I'm going to be reporting back and letting you know how I feel. I also said that I would talk to you guys a little bit about... Excuse me. I would talk to you guys a little bit about some of the coolest things I've done in mediumship and my psychic work. So, this is not like a bragging thing or an ego thing. I just want to put it out there so that you know that for anybody who's listening, whether if you know me or not, or if I've done a reading for you, or you've just stumbled across this video, the possibilities in the world are endless. And as long as you know that, you will absolutely be able to move forward in your life. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a couple minutes, because I'm going to give you like 2 examples of things that I've done that I am like, wow, that's unbelievable that happened. And I still have a hard time explaining it myself. So one of the things that has happened a couple years ago on a paranormal investigation, I had a Spanish-speaking spirit get my attention. And one of the really cool things that happened was this spirit got my attention hours before I even got to the location of where I was going. Definitely a ghost, and it somehow sought me out from the Yonkers in New York to where I live in New Jersey. I was sitting in a restaurant with my family, and I started hearing Spanish in my head. You don't know me, but I can tell you that I did not do well in Spanish in high school. I barely made it out alive. I'm not bilingual by any means, and I kept hearing the phrase "mi tia" in my head over and over again. And for me, when I hear things like that in my head that I know are not my own thoughts, it's an indicator to me that a spirit is looking to communicate. Well, I jumped on Google Translator, and mi tia means my aunt in Spanish. I couldn't connect it to anybody immediately around me, so I let it be. Later on in the night, when I met up with Patrick, the gentleman who I do investigations with, we went to this apartment complex in Yonkers, and I met with the young woman there who's American, white woman with blonde hair, a little bit older. We went up to her apartment where she was having some interesting activity, including banging, things getting knocked off walls, and up to objects in the house, in the apartment being moved around, and leading up to something screaming in her guest's ear while they were watching television, and that's what prompted her to call us for an investigation. Now, all the other stuff in a New York City apartment building can kind of be debunked and explained away. So, of course, that's the first thing that we want to do as investigators, is that, we try to explain things away first. Look for the rational explanation before you go to paranormal. The thing that had me hooked was, after we weren't getting any readings with any of the meters or any of that stuff, I decided to sit down and do my thing and listen. And when I started listening, I started hearing Spanish. And I told the woman that I was picking up a Spanish-speaking ghost, but I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me because I don't speak that language. She laughed and told me that she could translate if I could kind of spit it out. So I phonetically said the words that I was hearing in my head, and I asked the spirit to kind of spell it out with the letters and make the sound so I can understand them and kind of get them out. I'm sure it didn't sound good, whatever I was saying, but I was able to speak enough Spanish through the spirit that the woman who needed the investigation done was able to translate. And basically what we got out of it is that this spirit, or ghost, however you look at it, was in the apartment, and he was upset, and he refused to leave the apartment until he got in touch with his aunt. Now, that to me is pretty wild because, I was getting enough information out that we could get to that point and say, well, this spirit is not going to leave unless he could find his aunt, who I believe used to live in the apartment. Well, obviously I couldn't do anything for this lady, but I told her she should contact a Spanish-speaking medium, and they would probably be able to help her and move the spirit along. We did check up with the lady a couple months later, and she said everything had quieted down once we were able to communicate with the spirit, at least the best we could, that we didn't speak Spanish, and we did not know where his aunt was, and we couldn't help him in that way. So I don't know if the spirit moved on or anything, but for me, that was a really pivotal point, saying, okay, I had a Spanish-speaking spirit talk to me, and I was able to help a little bit and speak a little bit of Spanish, and help the lady out, and maybe even the spirit, I don't know. So that's one, and that was a little bit of mediumship during a paranormal investigation. And then another time was very recently, where I had a client call me and say, hey, you did a reading for me about a year ago, and you gave me a bunch of information, and you wrote everything down. This is what I do when I do like readings for people. I write everything down on paper, and I leave them with everything that I write down, so that later on, if anything comes through that they can validate, they have the paper and they can see exactly what I wrote down. And in this instance, it absolutely worked. So I took a couple minutes, and the woman asked me if I thought that her husband would be employed again, because he had hurt himself on the job. And I sat down and quieted myself down, and I went into kind of like, I'll say psychic mode for a lack of better words. And I wrote down a couple things that I was picking up. I picked up the word Florida, pecan trees, military, promotion, female, 2 jobs. The word conduit, I believe, is one of the things. And a name came through of, I believe, Tim. So she called me and she said, none of this stuff made any sense. In the last year, I've tried to fit these things into situations, which I tell people you really shouldn't do. Don't try to make things fit if they don't fit. It's not worth it. I don't try to prove anything I do. If I'm on, I'm on, and if I'm off, I'm off. It's fine. It doesn't hurt me any. I try to just do my best and give the best info I can. Well, in this instance, it took an entire year for what I was talking about to come through in regards to her husband getting a job. And it was all in kind of a roundabout type of way. So she says that her husband goes on vacation for about a week to some family down in Florida who he doesn't see that often. He came back, and a week goes by, and he starts talking to his wife, my client, about the pecan trees at his family's farm. And she laughs and she says, what do you mean pecans? What are you talking about? And he says, well, they're pecan farmers. They have all these trees. And she's telling me the story. So she runs and finds the piece of paper that I write everything down on and brings it down, and things start matching up. So he goes to Florida, which is something I talked about. He is among pecan trees, or pecan, however you say it, right? And then the other stuff, his cousin from California was moving to Florida because she was getting a promotion in the military. So all of these things fit. Then he comes home, and when he gets back, he goes to the doctor, and the doctor clears him to go back to work. He calls his first workup at his work where he got hurt at, and says, hey, I'll be back to work in a couple days. And they say, okay. In the meantime, and I'm sorry, the other stuff was part of what I had predicted or written down. A job with the union calls, which I had written down the word union and conduit next to them, and says, hey, we have a job for you if you want to come back to it. So now he has to choose between the 2 jobs. And that was another thing I'd written, 2 jobs, union, conduit, and all this other stuff, right? And then, within that time span, his friend Tim calls, who was the name that I wrote down, and Tim says, hey, we have a side job somewhere if you want to come do it. All within this time of going to Florida and all these other things happening, and then the jobs and everything coming together. So it's pretty incredible to me that a year later something came through. It's really remarkable. So that stuff has really led me to understand I'm really doing the right thing with mediumship and doing my psychic work. But then on top of that, my own health issues are leading me down a road of needing to learn healing. So I've been and it's funny because everything I know happens for a reason. I've been watching on TLC. I watched all 6 episodes of this show called The Healer, with this gentleman named Charlie, and he does energy healing, and he never calls it Reiki. He calls it energy healing. And if you ever watch a show, check it out. He talks about how this all kind of came about, and now I'm like, I don't want to say I'm obsessed, but I definitely want to learn more about it, because I believe that if I have the ability to read energy, then hopefully I can learn how to use that same energy to do healings. Do I think I could do it to the extent that that gentleman does it? I don't know yet. But I'm going to practice it, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to do my best to figure it out so that I can become good at it, and hopefully proficient. So this also is really cool for me because it puts me really far behind on something that I want to do. And I know a lot of people want to develop as psychics and mediums, or how, their clairvoyance and their intuition, all this stuff, things that have come very naturally to me. Well, trying to learn how to heal with energy puts me very far behind the curve, and it gives me something really to work for and strive for. And knowing that I could do these other things is really pushing me in the direction that I know that I can do the healing stuff also. It's just going to be a matter of figuring it out. So that's going to be some of the things I'm going to talk about in my upcoming podcast that I'm going to put up here, is I really want to be able to do those things. I want to be able to do them well and proficiently, and I'd like to be able to explain the process as I go along and kind of give that to you guys as I do it. And as I do it, I will always be putting up write-ups on ScottyTheNJMedium.com, where I write my blog for all the other stuff. So we'll be doing that. Then on what's next after that? Then once I start getting good at it, I'll be hopefully practicing on friends and family, and then writing about my experiences and all that kind of stuff, and putting the blog up and a podcast, and hopefully having guests on to talk about that kind of thing. It should be pretty awesome, I think. So if you're looking forward to all that and you want to check it out, subscribe to this channel, Scotty the NJ Medium. Go over to ScottyTheNJMedium.com. There's a thing that you click for notifications on there for when I post up blogs. And you can always go like my Instagram and my Facebook and keep up with me on like a daily and weekly basis, where I do videos and Ouija board and all that kind of fun stuff that we like to keep things light and have a good time. Thanks very much for listening. Remember to hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be doing a vlog, a video log of grounding and earthing and all the techniques that I'm going to be doing on that, and keeping you guys up to date on my mediumship, and especially on my new adventure of learning how to heal with energy. So I look forward to hearing all your comments and feedback. Please go ahead over there and subscribe to all my other stuff, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Snapchat and a Twitter. They're all the same handles. You can find me. I'll see you guys there. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.